Hi guys, welcome to this baby shark cake tutorial. I searched for a baby shark cake on YouTube and couldn't find how to make one, so I thought I'd put this together. So what I've done is I've taken 250 gram blocks of ready to roll icing. I've got 1.5 blocks of blue and I've got half a block of white, and I'm mixing those together. And the reason for doing that is because I want the background blue to be slightly lighter than the blue which I'm using for the actual baby shark. So there's a bit of a contrast there. So rolling it out using lots of icing sugar. The way I do it is to use loads of icing sugar, ice the rolling pin as well, keep moving it about every few rolls. I don't turn the icing over. Lots of people do this, but I tend to leave it on one side so that it doesn't get covered. Both sides don't get covered in icing sugar. Just find it easier. But what you need to do is obviously ensure that the rolling pin doesn't stick to the icing. So you need to keep adding icing sugar to that, although that sometimes is difficult if you've got a very smooth rolling pin. So I like to roll it very thin because it's then easier to smooth over the cake. It's important to get it to the right size. If it's better to be much too big than a little bit too small, because you can't add any sugar paste on. Then once it's on the cake, it's just a case of starting at the top and smoothing it down. And what you're sort of doing is kind of stretching the icing a bit and actually compressing it as well. So just to smooth it out and get a smooth finish. So you start at the top, work your way down, a little bit at a time. Don't rush this bit because it's important to get right. You can sort of see what I'm doing better than I can describe. But what I would say is don't try and sort of drag the icing to the side too much, in the same direction, or you end up, by the time you've gone around the cake, with a big pile of icing at the end which you can't smooth out. So you need to sort of try and smooth it in position where it is as best you can. I'm doing this on a turntable, which just makes it a bit easier to do because you can stay in the same position. Once you've finished, you need to cut the icing off at the bottom. And again, it's very important to take your time on this. You don't want to cut too much off. However, if you don't cut enough off, you can easily just trim the last little bit off at the bottom. If you do cut too much off, you could pipe, get some piping icing to do some design on the edge, but that's a bit more advanced, and in this case isn't the look we want on the cake. Next bit is to make the baby shark. So for this, I'm using the original blue. So I've got half a block left of that, and I'm rolling it into an oblong shape. You can see I've got a picture of a baby shark, which I've frozen YouTube and taken a screenshot of that. What you could do is actually resize that on your computer and print it out at the size you want, and then you could cut it out and use that as a template. I couldn't be bothered doing that really. I just thought it'd be easier to do freehand, so I'm using a series of pizza cutters here. Tells you a lot about my lifestyle. But you can use any sharp knife. The circular pizza cutter is really good for getting one clean edge, but you can't go into corners with it. You can't cut out the whole of the corner, so you do need another sharp knife. And this other pizza cutter that I'm using now is actually the sharpest knife I've got. So it's pretty easy to do this. The difficult bit is getting it the right size. I've probably done it a bit too big, but I didn't realise. So it's going to be hard to make it smaller once I've started. But I could always, you could always start again. The other good thing about doing this. People think this is quite difficult, but it's really easy, because if you make a mistake, if it's not quite the right shape, you can just bend it into shape, and you'll see me doing that later on. I think the video is I've set it to 2 times normal speed, just so I don't bore you to death. Now I'm rolling out the white ready to roll icing, and you can see I'm not taking my own advice here. I'm not icing the rolling pin enough, because the rolling pin is sticking to the icing, so I should listen to myself more, I think. Then I've pushed it against the edge of the blue shark, and I've used that as a sort of a template. You can see the outline of where to cut, so I've done that. It was quite late at night when I did this, and I think I got a bit confused about what I was doing. You'll see me sort of a bit hesitant, not quite sure what to do, because I was trying to rush as well. It was being filmed, I was under a bit of pressure, and I couldn't handle the pressure. So what you need to do, and probably an easier way of doing this, is just to cut 2 small strips, because you'll see in a minute I cut it in half, and you can then just shape them into the edge. You can just push them in, and maybe trim them a little bit if you like as well. But you see me faffing about here, trying to sort it out, realizing I don't need a white fin. It's just the belly of the shark that's white. And then I obviously realised that I need to cut around the fin. So I'm almost there. I've just got a little bit too much white, so I'm just going to cut that off, I think. And I'm just referring back to the picture. I should say that it's important to use a good quality icing. I use Morrison's icing. It's their own label. It's really good, and it's not as sticky as other icings are that you get in the supermarkets in the UK. So that's why I only use that. You can see I'm just I've bent the shape of the icing to make it fit. And again, if you're not happy at any stage, you can just bend it a bit more, cut a bit more off, or you can even stretch it a little bit. I've decided the nose needs to be a bit sharper. I've put an edible eye on. They're really cool. They're Cake Decor do those, and again they're in the supermarkets in the UK. And now I'm using, I've turned it upside down because I need to apply it to the cake now. So I'm going to stick it on with a tube of writing icing. Now you could use lots of different things for this. Because I've rolled it relatively thin, I can get away with just a light icing. If you roll it thicker, then obviously you need something more substantial to hold it on. You can buy edible glue, but I mean it's quite expensive. I've never used it. I get by with icing to hold it on. Royal icing would be even better. That would really hold it in place. But I have no problem with this. Hard to tell from the picture, but the blue of the baby shark, although it does look too big, doesn't it? It looks more like a mummy shark. The blue of the shark is darker than the sea that it's in, which is important. So that's why it's important to add the white icing at the start. So here it looks like I'm running out of icing sugar a little bit, but so I should be taking my own advice, but use loads of icing sugar. This is just a green ready to roll icing off the shelf, and this is to make the reeds. Now these are really easy. You just cut small strips. One end should be pointy, the other end should be cut flat, and then you can just add a little bend to it if you like, to make it look like it's moving in the water. So I'm going to do 12 of those. May or may not use them all. Next we're going to do some shells using pink icing, and as many different colours you can use the better. and what I'm doing isn't, definitely the best way of doing it, but if you can add any more colour, then all the better. So I'm just cutting small strips, rolling them up, squeezing one end to make it a pointy, and putting my thumb in the other end to make it look like a cone or a shell. So I'm going to do 5 of those, but again, do as many or as few as you like. Next, the starfish. So orange is a good colour to use for this. Lots of people will have a star-shaped cutter. I'm sure I have loads somewhere, but I can't find them. So I'm just doing it freehand with the pizza cutter. Now it can be tricky to do stars freehand, but the important thing, if you can remember when you were at school drawing stars, and basically you just have to draw 6 straight lines at 60-degree angles, and that will give you a star. Obviously, you can't cut straight lines because you need to leave a bit for each sort of point. Now I'm using a black writing icing to draw faces. Again, do as you please with that. And then to attach them to the cake, it's as simple as just wetting the back of the little bit of icing. Because they're all quite thin and lightweight, it's easy to just stick them on. They don't need anything more than a bit of water. Again, I arrange 4 quite close together, 4 reeds, but do as you like. This is I think it's a 7-inch cake, could be 8-inch, but I think it's 7. And it's amazing how quickly you actually run out of space. So always sort of look around the cake and make sure you've got enough space left for everything else. And what I've done is I've done both sides of the shark first to make sure that I get everything on that I want. Then, if this is a birthday cake, then, the top could be where you write your message, happy birthday, Jake, or whatever. Obviously you need candles or any other decorations that you want to put on top. But if there's space, then it's good to add some little waves, I think. Just sort of curved shapes, not wavy shapes. And that's it. Thanks for viewing.